Welcome to our channel. Today we have a heartwarming and suspense-filled story that will tug at your heartstrings. In A Bride's Tears, A Groom's Lies, we dive deep into the complexities of love, betrayal, and the power of truth. This story will take you on a roller coaster of emotions as Lily uncovers a shocking secret about her new husband, Daniel. Will their love survive the lies? Stay tuned for a tale of courage, redemption, and a lesson about love's true strength. Don't miss it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new story. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your opinions on the story and what you think about love overcoming obstacles. The grand wedding hall shimmered under the golden glow of chandeliers, casting a dreamlike aura over the celebration. Soft violin music played in the background, blending with the gentle murmur of excited guests. The air smelled of fresh roses and vanilla-scented candles. Yet, despite the beauty surrounding her, Lily felt an unshakable heaviness in her heart. She sat alone in the bride's chamber, her reflection staring back at her from the ornate mirror. Her wedding dress, a breathtaking masterpiece of lace and pearls, hugged her body like a second skin. The veil, delicate and weightless, framed her face, but instead of joy, her eyes held a quiet sadness. This was supposed to be the happiest day of her life, the day she had dreamed of since she was a little girl, the day she would promise forever to the man she loved. But why did something inside her feel wrong? A single tear slid down her cheek. She quickly wiped it away, forcing a smile as if that would erase the unease in her chest. She had no reason to feel this way, at least that's what she kept telling herself. Daniel was everything a woman could ask for. He was handsome, successful, and incredibly charming. He had showered her with love, whispered sweet promises in her ear, and made her believe in fairy tales. Yet, deep in the pit of her stomach, doubt lingered like a shadow she couldn't shake. A soft knock at the door made her jump. "Lily?" A familiar voice called through the door. It was Rachel, her best friend and maid of honor. Lily swallowed the lump in her throat. "Come in," she said, trying to sound steady. Rachel entered the room, her blue eyes filled with warmth. "It's time." Lily hesitated for a second, her heart pounding. She forced a smile. "I'm ready." But was she? With trembling fingers, she adjusted her veil and smoothed down her dress before taking Rachel's arm. Together, they walked down the long hallway that led to the grand wedding hall. As they reached the entrance, the doors slowly opened, revealing the breathtaking scene before her. Hundreds of guests stood in admiration, their faces glowing with happiness. White flowers lined the aisle and candles flickered along the pathway. The scent of roses filled the air. It was everything she had ever wanted, and yet she felt like she was walking into a trap. Then her eyes locked onto Daniel. He stood at the altar, waiting for her. His black tuxedo was perfectly tailored, his hair neatly styled. His smile was flawless, just like always. But something in his eyes made her heart stutter. Was it nervousness? Guilt? Fear? Lily's hands tightened around her bouquet as she forced herself to take one step forward, then another. Every step felt heavier than the last. The whispers of guests faded into the background, drowned out by the deafening sound of her own heartbeat. By the time she reached Daniel, her hands were ice cold. He took them in his own, squeezing gently, but the warmth didn't reach her. The priest began the ceremony, his voice steady and calm. But Lily barely heard the words. Her mind was spinning. As the priest asked the age-old question, "Do you take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband?" Logically, Lily's lips parted, but before she could answer, a whisper escaped her. "Daniel, is there something you're not telling me?" His grip on her hands tightened ever so slightly. His perfect smile faltered for just a fraction of a second. Then he whispered back, "I love you, Lily. That's all that matters." His voice was steady, reassuring, but it wasn't enough. Something inside her screamed that she was about to make the biggest mistake of her life. And soon, she would find out why. The night was supposed to be magical, their first night as husband and wife. The grand wedding had ended, the guests had left, and the once bustling hall now lay silent, except for the flickering candlelight that cast golden shadows on the walls. Lily sat alone in their honeymoon suite, still in her wedding dress, her fingers tracing the delicate lace on her sleeves. The air was filled with the soft scent of roses, but her heart felt heavy. Something about Daniel's behavior throughout the evening had unsettled her. He smiled, he laughed, he played the part of a perfect groom. But there had been moments, brief, fleeting seconds, when his face had darkened with something else. Nervousness, guilt, fear. She hadn't asked him about it during the reception, convincing herself it was just wedding day stress. But now, sitting alone in the dimly lit room, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Then she heard it, his voice, low and urgent. Lily turned toward the window. The sheer white curtains fluttered slightly as a cool breeze drifted through the open balcony door. Stepping closer, she spotted Daniel outside, standing in the moonlight, his phone pressed tightly to his ear. His back was to her, but the tension in his shoulders was unmistakable. She hesitated for a moment, her heart pounding. She didn't want to be the kind of wife who eavesdropped on her husband's conversations, but something about the way he spoke sent a shiver down her spine. Then she heard him say it. She can never know the truth. The words sliced through the night like a blade. Lily's breath caught in her throat. A chill crawled up her spine, her skin prickling with unease. Who was he talking to? And what truth was he hiding? Daniel's voice lowered, making it harder to hear. She pressed herself closer to the window, holding her breath, but his words became muffled. Seconds later, he hung up and ran a hand through his hair, exhaling heavily. He stood there for a moment, staring at the sky as if burdened by something too heavy to carry. Then, as if sensing her presence, he turned toward the window. Lily jumped back, her heart hammering against her ribs. She rushed to the bed and pulled the covers over herself, shutting her eyes just as the door opened. Daniel stepped inside. The warmth of his presence filled the room, but instead of comfort, it brought only fear. He walked toward the bed, pausing for a moment before leaning down and kissing her forehead. "Good night, my love," he whispered. Lily kept her breathing steady, pretending to be asleep. She felt his weight settle on the other side of the bed, and soon his breathing became slow and deep. But Lily didn't sleep. Her mind raced, replaying his words over and over. She can never know the truth. What was he hiding? The early morning sun spilled through the windows, casting a soft golden glow over the room. Birds chirped outside, and the world felt peaceful. But inside Lily's heart, a storm raged. Daniel was still asleep, his face relaxed, his breathing even. He looked so innocent, so normal. But last night had changed everything. Carefully, she reached for his phone on the nightstand. Her fingers trembled as she picked it up. She knew it was wrong. She knew she was crossing a line. But she needed to know. She unlocked the phone with a deep breath and began scrolling through his messages. Most were from friends and family, congratulating him on the wedding. But then her eyes landed on a conversation with an unknown number. Her pulse quickened. She opened the message thread, and what she saw made her blood run cold. "I did what you asked. She's my wife now. I hope you're happy." The phone nearly slipped from her hands. Her chest tightened, her breath coming in short, uneven gasps. Who had he sent that to? And what did he mean by "I did what you asked"? Lily stared at the screen, her mind spinning with terrifying possibilities. Had she been tricked? Had she married a man who had an ulterior motive, something beyond love? Her hands shook as she set the phone down, her vision blurring with unshed tears. Her entire world, which had felt so perfect just hours ago, was now crumbling beneath her feet. The silence between Lily and Daniel had grown thicker with each passing day. Ever since she saw that mysterious text message, she felt like she was living with a stranger. He still kissed her good morning, still held her hand in public, still whispered, "I love you," before bed. But something had changed. She no longer believed his words. Every time she looked at him, her mind raced with questions. Who was he really? What was he hiding? And why did it feel like she was just a piece in some twisted game? She knew she couldn't live like this. The only way to find the truth was to go back to where it all started, his past. Lily packed a small bag and told Daniel she was visiting her mother for the weekend. It wasn't entirely a lie. Her mother did live 2 hours away, but that wasn't her real destination. Instead, she drove past the familiar highways and into the unknown, heading toward a small town Daniel had rarely spoken about. As she approached, the scenery changed. Towering city buildings gave way to rolling green fields. The roads became quieter, the air heavier. Time seemed to slow down in this town, as if it were frozen in the past. The moment she entered the town square, a strange feeling settled in her chest. There was an eerie stillness, like the town held its breath, waiting for something or someone. She parked her car in front of a tiny, old-fashioned diner, the kind where people sat in the same booths every morning, sipping coffee and talking about things that happened decades ago. As she stepped inside, the little bell on the door jingled. Heads turned. Conversation stopped for just a second before the hum of chatter resumed. Lily approached the counter. An elderly woman stood behind it, wiping a coffee cup with a cloth. She had kind eyes but a wary expression. Lily cleared her throat. "Excuse me, ma'am. I'm looking for information about the Thompson family." The woman's hands stilled. "Thompson?" she repeated, her gaze sharpening. "Yes, Daniel Thompson. He's my husband." The woman's lips pressed into a thin line. She studied Lily for a moment before exhaling a long sigh. "I remember that name all too well. But I thought he would never come back." Lily's heart pounded. "Why?" The woman glanced around the diner as if checking for eavesdroppers. Then she leaned in and lowered her voice. "Because of what happened to his brother." A brother. She never knew. Lily's breath hitched. Daniel never mentioned having a brother. Not once. She gripped the edge of the counter. What happened? The woman hesitated, her fingers tightening around the coffee cup. His brother fell in love with a black woman. Their father was furious. He forced Daniel to do something terrible. Lily's blood turned cold. Her hands trembled as she whispered, "What did he do?" The woman shook her head, her expression grim. "I don't know the full truth. But Daniel's father always said, 'Family honor comes before love.' And in this town, those words meant everything." Lily felt like the air had been knocked out of her lungs. The room seemed to spin. Was that why Daniel married her? Was she part of some twisted attempt to fix his family's reputation? To erase the past? The weight of the past. Lily stumbled back, needing air. She rushed out of the diner, barely aware of the whispers that followed her. She sat in her car, gripping the steering wheel, trying to steady her breathing. It all made sense now. The tension in Daniel's voice, the cryptic phone call, the text message. "I did what you asked. She's my wife now. I hope you're happy." Had he married her to prove something to his father? Tears stung her eyes. She thought she had found love, but now she wasn't sure if she had ever been anything more than a pawn in Daniel's game of redemption. The night air was thick with tension. The house was quiet, but inside Lily's heart, a storm raged. The weight of everything she had discovered pressed down on her, suffocating her. She had rushed back home, her mind spinning, her emotions tangled in a mess of love, betrayal, and confusion. Daniel was sitting in their bedroom, reading through some documents, completely unaware of what was about to happen. Lily stood in the doorway, gripping his phone so tightly that her knuckles turned white. Her heart pounded in her chest, but she refused to let her fear stop her. She took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Who did you send this message to?" Daniel looked up, his face instantly draining of color when he saw the phone in her hand. His eyes darted between her face and the screen, and for a moment he looked like a man trapped with no escape. "Lily, I can explain." She held up the phone, her hands trembling with anger and hurt. "Then explain. Because right now all I see is a lie. A lie I married." Daniel ran a hand through his hair, exhaling sharply. He closed his eyes for a moment before looking at her again. His face was pained, but Lily couldn't tell if it was guilt or something else. "It's my father," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "He never forgave my brother for loving outside our race. When he found out I loved you, he gave me an ultimatum: marry you under his conditions or lose everything." Lily's breath caught in her throat. Her fingers loosened around the phone as his words sank in. She felt like the walls were closing in on her, like the air had been sucked out of the room. "So you lied to me?" Her voice was thick with emotion. "You married me because of him? Was our love even real?" Daniel stepped forward, his eyes pleading. "Lily, no. I married you because I love you, because I wanted to. But I also wanted to prove something to my father, that love is stronger than hate." His voice broke on the last words, and for the first time, Lily saw the pain in his eyes, the torment of a man torn between the love he had for his wife and the fear of losing his family. But did that make it right? Lily took a shaky step back. "And what about me, Daniel? What about what I deserve? You let me believe this was a marriage built on trust. You made me believe we were starting our lives together, and all along you were playing a game with your father." Daniel's face twisted with regret. "It was never a game to me, Lily. Never. I fought for you. I fought against him. I wanted to prove that we could be together despite everything." Lily's chest tightened. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to hold on to the love they had shared, the memories, the laughter, the late-night whispers. But love built on a lie. Was it still love? "You should have told me," she whispered, her voice breaking. "You should have let me fight this battle with you." Daniel reached for her hands, but she pulled away. "Lily, I love you. Please, don't let him win. Don't let the hate win." She stared at him, her heart aching. She had a choice to make. Would she walk away? Or would she try to rebuild the love they once had, this time with no secrets? The morning air was still, heavy with an unsettling silence. The world outside their home seemed untouched, as if nothing had changed. But inside Lily's heart, everything was different. She sat by the window, lost in thought. Last night's confrontation with Daniel had drained her. She had barely slept, torn between love and betrayal, between trust and doubt. Daniel had told her he loved her. He had begged her not to let hate win. But could love truly erase the lies? Could it fix the wounds of deception? Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of tires crunching against the pavement. A sleek, black car pulled up in front of their house, its polished surface gleaming under the morning sun. Lily's stomach twisted with unease. She knew who it was before he even stepped out. The car door opened and a man emerged, tall, powerful, his presence suffocating even from a distance. His sharp suit was perfectly pressed, his silver hair neatly combed, and his cold, piercing eyes locked onto the house like a predator eyeing its prey. Daniel's father had arrived. The doorbell rang, but before Lily could move, Daniel was already at the door. His jaw was clenched, his body tense as he pulled it open. The older man stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. His gaze barely flickered over Lily before settling on his son. "You have shamed our family." His voice was low, controlled, but beneath it there was a dangerous edge. Daniel met his father's stare without flinching. I expected you to come. His father's lips curled into a bitter smirk. Did you? Then you should know why I'm here. You were supposed to marry her to fix our reputation, not actually love her. Lily's breath caught in her throat. She had suspected it, feared it, but hearing it said aloud shattered something inside her. Daniel's hands balled into fists. You used my love as a tool. You made me believe that proving something to you was more important than my happiness. His father scoffed. Happiness? You think love is enough? Do you think the world will change because of your foolish emotions? His cold gaze flicked toward Lily, and she felt stripped bare under his scrutiny. She is nothing but a symbol to you, Daniel, a way to rewrite the past, and once the world moves on, what will you be left with? Nothing. Lily swallowed hard. She had never felt more dehumanized in her life, but before she could speak, Daniel did. You're wrong. His voice was steady, but there was fire in his eyes. He took a step forward, standing tall in front of his father. I will not live in your shadow anymore. I love Lily, and I will spend my life proving it to her, not to you. His father's expression darkened. Then you are no son of mine. A heavy silence filled the room. Lily's breath hitched. She turned to Daniel, watching for his reaction, searching his face for regret or hesitation. But there was none. Instead, Daniel straightened his shoulders and spoke with quiet finality. Then I choose love over family. For the first time, his father's mask cracked, just slightly. A flicker of disbelief, of anger, of something deeper flashed in his cold eyes. Then, just as quickly, it was gone. He adjusted his cufflinks, smoothing his expression into something unreadable. You'll regret this. With that, he turned sharply on his heel and walked out, slamming the door behind him. The silence that followed was deafening. Lily stood frozen, her heart hammering in her chest. She turned to Daniel, searching his face, waiting for the weight of his decision to crash down on him. But he only looked at her, his expression softening. He took her hands in his grip firm yet gentle. I don't care about his money, his power, or his approval. I just care about you. Tears welled in Lily's eyes. She had spent days questioning his love. She had doubted, feared, and nearly walked away. But in this moment she saw the truth, the raw, undeniable love in his eyes. It wasn't about proving anything to his father anymore. It was about them. And maybe, just maybe, love was enough. The days that followed Daniel's confrontation with his father were not easy. Without his family's wealth and connections, life became a struggle. The elegant house he had once grown up in, the luxury cars, the effortless privilege, all of it was gone. But for the first time, Daniel felt free. He worked tirelessly, picking up a job at a local firm. The long hours were exhausting, and the weight of starting over pressed down on him. There were moments when doubt whispered in his mind, moments when exhaustion made him question everything. But every time he came home to Lily, every time he saw her smile, felt her warmth, heard her laughter, he knew he had made the right choice. He had lost his father's approval, but he had gained something far greater. He had gained truth, rebuilding. Together. One evening, Daniel arrived home later than usual. His muscles ached from the long shift, but the sight of Lily curled up on the couch, a blanket draped over her legs, made his exhaustion fade. The soft glow of the fireplace flickered across her face as she looked up at him. "You're home," she said gently. Daniel sat beside her, rubbing his temples. "Long day." Lily tucked her legs under her and studied him. "You don't have to do this alone, you know." He looked at her, his eyes filled with emotion. "I know, but I want to. I need to prove to myself that I can build a life with you, without him." Lily reached for his hand, threading her fingers through his. "You already are, Daniel." He turned to her, his expression serious. I know I hurt you. I know I broke your trust. His voice cracked slightly. But I promise I will spend my whole life proving that I love you. Lily's heart swelled. She had seen his struggles, his sacrifices, his quiet determination. She had seen the man he truly was, not the man his father had tried to mold him into. She smiled softly. Love isn't about words, Daniel. It's about actions. And so far, you're proving yourself. Daniel exhaled, relief washing over him. He pulled her into his arms, holding her close. No more lies, no more secrets. Just us. Lily rested her head against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. For the first time in a long time, she felt at peace. Love over hate. Their love had been tested, torn apart by secrets, and rebuilt with truth. They had walked through fire, but they had come out stronger. In the end, it wasn't about race, family, or history. It was about them. Two people choosing love over hate, truth over lies, a future over the past. And as they sat together, wrapped in each other's warmth, they knew one thing for certain. Love wasn't just about finding the right person. It was about fighting for them. Love is stronger than prejudice. It takes courage to stand against racism, even when it's within your own family. Change starts with one person choosing to do what's right,